Hi, my name is Samar, but I also go by Sam or First Time Panner, and any of those that you want to call me, you can. Happy New Year! This is, if I'm uploading everything in the correct order, this will be the first video that I upload for the year of 2024. As always, there are kids playing in the background. And yeah, I'm excited. This will be, of course, an introduction to a project I'm doing that you probably already know from the title. And you know, considering it's the first video of the year, I probably should be wearing something a little bit more snazzy. Probably should have had my nails redone. They're really grown out, but we're working with what we have. And I'm just gonna get started because I'm really excited about this project. I've been planning this for months. I've been planning this since summer, and this is my No Pan Left Behind project pan. So I'm sure there have been many people who have done something very similar to this. I know No Pan Left Behind projects are very popular, but if anyone knows someone who did pretty much this exact same thing, leave a comment and tell me who it was so I can definitely give them credit, and you can go and watch their videos as well. I decided that I wanted to do this project because all of 2023, and I am filming this in 2023, it's not over yet, I'm pre-filming and I have my December candle out, but all of 2023 I've pretty much been putting in, other than my Pan That palettes, all of 2023 I was putting my palettes into project pans for a No Pan Left Behind usage goal, and I found I was really enjoying that because at least in 2023 I did a really bad job of cycling through my eyeshadow palette collection, and the only way I was getting use out of my palettes pretty much was putting them in for a No Pan Left Behind goal, and I realized that's how I like to get use on my palettes. If I feel like I want to use them, each shade in a palette, more than once, of course I can do that, but I always like to hit each shade at least once. Since I did buy the whole palette, I should be using the whole palette, and I think this is a really good way to get use out of my palettes at least once throughout the year. And my goal for this year is to use literally every single shade in every palette that I have at least once in the year of 2024, which is a bit overwhelming, but I've broken it down a little bit and I'm gonna explain that now. So I went through, this is very nerdy of me, but most project planners are nerds, you know. We like to make homework out of our makeup. But I wrote down all of my palettes in my entire collection, and I organized them from small, medium, and large. So small would be anything 4 pans or less, or I think it was like 5 or 6 pans or less actually. And then I did the 7 to 9 or 7 to 10 pan palettes as my medium palettes, and then anything with more than 10 pans was in the large category. And for each month of the year, I planned out by kind of like color story that I like to wear per season and per month. I put in at least 1 palette from each of those categories, and I kind of mixed things up so that I would have a little bit of variation every month, but kind of keeping with the theme of the season that it's in. If I'm remembering correctly, every month of the year except for 1 month, I think, has 5 palettes, but I tried to organize them so that if there was any month that had like a really big palette, like my Norvina Pro palette, or my like Lorac Fairy Tale Forest, which has like 18 shades in it, I think, I made sure to try to put like the other palettes as smaller palettes so that I could have roughly the same amount of shades to use each month, so that I wasn't, you know, bored 1 month and then super overwhelmed the next month. But anyway, you'll kind of see that as I go through the palettes that I'm introducing, and I already have all of my palettes for the month of January picked out, which I'll be showing you now. But yeah, the basic premise of this is to try to use all of the shades in every palette for that month by the end of the month. I'm doing this by calendar month, so pretty much once the month ends, whatever I've used, that's going to be my usage. I'm not going to roll anything over, just because I feel like that's how I would start really getting behind and start postponing things, so I can like finish a usage on one palette, but then it kind of snowballs and I'm at the end of the year with like 10 palettes still left to use. So basically, if I haven't used a palette or finished using a palette by the end of the month, there's no going back. And I think that'll be like a little bit extra motivation to actually use all of these palettes during that month instead of slacking off. But it'll also be a little bit of a relief that if I don't finish it, it's whatever, at least I tried, and I'll just get to move on to my next month's palettes. So the 5 palettes for the month of January are all pretty much cool tone palettes. And if you've been watching me for any amount of time, you might be able to guess at least one palette that is in my January palette picks. And of course, it had to be my Melt Mary Jane palette. If you know me, you know that this is like top 3 palettes in my entire collection ever. If I could only keep 3 palettes, this would definitely be one that I keep, because this is just like, basically like, this is my winter palette. And I'll show you what it looks like. Here's what it is if you haven't seen it. Unfortunately, I think this is discontinued. I checked the Sephora and Melt websites last week or the week before in December, and this wasn't available, so I don't know if you can get it anymore, unfortunately. It's really a bummer because this is a great palette. Despite the controversy, it's a great palette, trust me. But here's what it looks like. It's just a palette of medium and deep toned, cool tone browns and silver and green shadows, which is just my perfect grungy, you know, cool, deep palette for winter. And this is my new one. I replaced the one that I thought I lost. I gave that one to my mom because she wanted it. So now I just have this one, but I haven't even used it yet. So I'm excited to use it and start over with a new palette. And yeah, I'm really excited for this one. This is the only one out of all 5 palettes that's like an actual larger palette. Everything else here is like either a really small palette or kind of just a companion palette, as you'll see. Yeah, but this is the only one where it's like I'll have to create multiple looks out of the same palette, and I'm completely fine with that because I absolutely love this thing. So yeah, that's my first palette for January. If you can hear someone outside whistling, I think they're looking for the dog or their dog. Sorry, you might hear whistling. But the next palette is another cool tone palette, and maybe I just have a thing for cool tone shadows, which is weird because I have warm undertones. But this is just like an absolute favorite of mine out of everything in my collection. I love this palette so much. I mentioned it in my if I could only keep 10 eyeshadow palettes video, and that's the Dose of Colors Pretty Cool palette. And this was not in like the top 10 that I kept in this theoretical world, but I was going back and forth on whether I should keep this because I love this palette so much. I'll show you what it looks like. This is kind of reflective, so if you can see the mess that's on my dresser, sorry. That's what my life is like. But anyway, yeah, this is just like an absolutely beautiful palette. It's only 5 shades and it's all mattes, so I think this will be like a pretty easy palette for me to use. I'm not worried about it at all, and I also just love this palette, so I would want to reach for it anyway. They're my neighbors. Anyway, these tones, this palette is what made me love cool tones. This kind of sparked my love for cool tones in general. For the longest time, because I have such warm undertones, I always just assumed cool tones wouldn't work on me. Sorry, my neighbors love just standing outside my window and yelling. But yeah, for the longest time, I thought cool tones wouldn't look good on me because of my warm undertones. But I got this palette, I explained this in the other video too, but I got this palette in the bundle that I bought from Dose of Colors, and when I tried it, not only is the formula so good that it just made it even easier for me to love this palette, but these cool tones are like none I've ever tried before. I haven't tried this palette, but the only thing that I could think of comparing it to is the Huda Beauty or Huda Beauty Pretty Grunge palette that just came out. A lot of people were describing the tones in that palette as so unique because they're like purple toned, cool tone browns and grays, and that's exactly what this palette is. Just so you know, Dose of Colors was doing it first. No hate to Huda, you know, I like some of her products, but this is like the OG. This is also what stopped me from buying that palette, because I definitely would have bought that Pretty Grunge palette if I didn't have this already. But yeah, I just love this palette. It's so amazing. It's a great companion palette as well if you want to put shimmers on your lid. So I know I'll find like so many ways to use this palette, and again, another one that I'm really excited to use in January. I do have another 5-pan palette, which is my Natasha Denona Mini Star palette, and this one I have very, not even mixed feelings about this palette. I'll just be completely honest. I don't really like this eyeshadow palette. I was considering decluttering it for the longest time, but I just thought I'll put this palette in for January just so early on in the year I can decide what my true feelings are about it and then declutter it or not. This was the first Natasha Denona palette I ever bought, and I feel like I just got like really rotten luck. I mean, I don't like her eyeshadows that much anyway, unless they're the cream to powder formula. And I mean, you can buy cream to powder formulas way cheaper at other places or from other brands anyway. But I mean, just her regular formula I don't like anyway. So when I didn't like this palette, I should have stopped there. But yeah, I've heard from a lot of people that this palette in particular is just a way lower quality than most palettes from her line in general, and definitely doesn't reflect the quality of the larger star palette, so that's really disappointing. Shame on Natasha. But anyway, yeah, that's kind of why I put this palette in for January, just because I want to see what my final thoughts are on this palette before I decide to either declutter or keep it. But I feel like some of the tones also work for winter anyway. There's this like duochrome blue, then there's like this kind of icier pink shimmer shade that's like a pink champagne type color, and then you have this like gold green type color. The mattes in here are no good, so I'll probably just use them on a day where I don't care what my makeup looks like. But really I just want to use this palette to see if I should keep it around. Sorry, this like the reflection is really terrible. I'm doing my best. I want to use this palette to see if I should keep it around for the shimmers. So yeah, I'll report back in 1 month. The next palette is a quad, and it's also very reflective packaging, so I'll try my best, but it's the Pat McGrath Interstellar Icon, what is the full name? Celestial Divinity Luxe Quad Interstellar Icon. And this was the first palette I ever bought from Pat McGrath, and I do really like it, but because it's not a standalone palette for me, I almost never use it. In fact, I've only ever used it because I put it in a project, so I really need to get more use on it. And I think the 2 Pat McGrath quads that I have are definitely winter tones, so yeah, I wanted to put this first one in for January. Here's what the palette looks like. I'm trying my very best not to, oh, there we go. Okay, here's what the palette looks like. I'm gonna try to keep my hand very still so the light doesn't blind you. But just 4 shades, the blue purple duochrome, which is absolutely stunning. I love that shade so much. I thought Pat McGrath like special shades were overrated before I tried her eyeshadows. They're not overrated, they're very beautiful. I don't think I would ever pay for her like 10-pan mothership palettes because those are just really expensive, but I do think she has an amazing eyeshadow formula. So anyway, that blue purple duochrome is really beautiful. Of course, that more burgundy shade up there in the corner really beautiful as well, but that is kind of like a standalone for me. Otherwise I'll use it with that blue and purple shade. And then the other two are kind of just like neutral colors that I can pair with any other neutral look. So we'll see what I end up doing with this, but yeah, this is another beautiful palette. The last palette is a trio, and it's one that I've never used before. I've had it for a few months now, so I really should have, considering it's so small, and I could have easily used every shade in the palette just using this thing once. But we're here now, righting the wrongs, and the last palette is my Kaja Bento, Beauty Bento, in the shade Forest Night. There's another car speeding down the road when they shouldn't. Here's what this looks like. Here's the top shimmer shade. This is more like a metallic. This is the shimmer shade, which is mid-tone brown with like these beautiful, this is kind of like not like a bronze, but like a cool, if bronze was cool toned, that's what this is. And it has like a beautiful gold shimmer in it. I just can't wait to use it. I can't believe I haven't used it yet. And then the bottom one is a medium deep brown with like some silver sparkle running through it, but it's a matte. So I don't know if that's gonna show up when I do actually use it on my eyes, but yeah, I'll have to use it to find out. I'm really excited to use this palette because I think this is so beautiful. Like this, I have three. I have three of the Beauty Bentos. This one, the warm brown one, I think is called like Ginger Snap, and then I have the Mauve Bouquet. This one, I haven't even used it yet, and I already know I'm going to love it so much. I know this is gonna be my favorite one just from the colors in here. Yeah. So that was the last palette. I think I'll definitely be able to hit my goal on all 5 of these by the end of January. I'm pre-filming this, so I'll be out of town the first 5 days of the month, so I won't, and I'm not bringing any of these with me on my trip. What was that? Anyway, I won't be bringing any of these on my trip, but considering, I feel like even though I have 5 palettes in this month, they're relatively easy palettes, so I should be able to hit my goal no problem. This is only going to take me 1 use to hit my goal anyway. So yeah, but that's it for the introduction for my No Pan Left Behind project. Let me know if you're doing anything similar. I think this is a great way to get use on your eyeshadows if you have a larger collection like me and struggled in 2023 to use all of your eyeshadows. I did not use all of my eyeshadows, shame on me, but now I'm really gonna try to, and I'm excited. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope everyone has a great new year, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.